This is going to be an exciting call. I love talking about outreach. So awesome. We got Keith here. All right. So I'll probably kick things off. I'm going to record this call, potentially post it as content. Are you guys cool with that?
Sure.
Yes or no?
No problem.
Cool with that? Okay. All right. So we'll just jump right into it. But yeah, so I literally like during the school games, the last push that I had was a DM push, but throughout the entire school games, I was getting my leads through conversations in the DM. So we're going to talk about both like DMs at scale and then DMs like personalized outreach DMs for high ticket clients. So those are both really, really important and they're very different. There's different strategies behind them. So we're going to dive into both of them because there's a lot of similarities when it comes to the actual psychology of it. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so we have some cool visuals. But I'm also going to share a message that I sent to get like one of my first clients. So starting off, we're going to talk about just like the fundamentals of what goes into good marketing outreach of any kind. Oops, not mean to break up the triangle. But there's so many things that people get caught up on that actually are not really a big deal when it comes to like your outreach that don't matter a ton. So we're going to talk about those. We're going to talk about what actually matters. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to like raise your hand and then we'll bounce around that way. But people focus a lot and I get a lot of questions on like how long should my outreach be? How should I start it off? What words should I use? And like the end of the day, that stuff matters so much less than just having a good offer. Like a good offer is the foundation of any piece of outreach. And then the voice you write it in, so the tone you use, the approach you take to writing that message. Because I get probably like, I wrote about it in a post last night. I get probably like 50 to 100 cold messages a week. And I'm not even like a big creator. So think about the creators that like you're potentially going after clients who maybe have like 50,000 followers, 100,000, a million followers. They are getting absolutely spammed. Instagram is probably hiding about 95% of their messages and they're just not seeing it. And school outreach is different for sure. So we'll talk about that, but it's still so easy to get spammed. So the voice you write in is just the tone that you're going to use. It's the approach you're going to take. The CTA, like, are you asking them to do something in your piece of outreach? By the way, this triangle applies to like every piece of content you make as well. So if you're making a YouTube video or you're on a sales call, like the length of your sales call, the CTA matters a lot less than like the actual offer that you have. So keep that in mind. All right. Moving away from that triangle, I'm going to talk about the different kinds of outreach because most people on the internet, how many people on this call have like watched a big YouTuber talk about how to reach out to people on Instagram or like Facebook or whatever social media platform? How many people have seen that? Just raise your hand. Yeah.
Wait, seen
I
it or
think
done
that's well, that would be interesting. Have you done it?
it? Yeah.
Like the mass
Like,
market?
oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
what's
100
the criteria?
You know, like where you take a format and you just basically copy paste it and you DM like 100 people or 300 people,
Yeah.
hoping just get a reply back. Yeah. So that's what most of us are taught because it's like you got to go and either cold email, cold DM, cold call people, and just like basically send the same message to hundreds of people. And you're
Yeah, but it
targeting a
doesn't
broad
work.
audience. No, it doesn't work. Because it's impersonal and it's very robotic and typically it's hard to really like filter out the quality there because even if you do get a response back, chances are it's not going to be the highest quality client you'd be working with, or guaranteed it won't be the highest quality. Um, but the element that is good in mass marketing is that you're throwing so much mud up against the wall that something's gonna stick. You're going to find a client eventually if you reach out to enough people. That is why that is so widely taught because as a rule, like yes, somebody will respond to you. It's just whether like you actually want to work with that person, then they do respond to you. So the benefit of like mass outreach is that typically you're either going to find somebody that's just like desperate and they're going to work with you, or you're just going to have like timing work in your favor. So like I had a guy that commented on one of my YouTube videos and I get these comments, at least two of these comments on every single video I post, talking about how they could help me edit better or make better thumbnails or whatever. And I always ignore them. But for some reason, this like the timing was just right. Like I just needed somebody, I had an idea for a video, and so I responded. I was like, DM me on Instagram. And he did, and we got on a call and he edited a video for me. I don't think I'm gonna move forward because I didn't see a good result from the editing, but we'll see. Maybe I'll like use him for short form. Um, but that was just because it was good timing. So had he not been probably commenting that on like 50 other people's videos as well, he wouldn't have ever gotten a response. But one thing he did was he targeted a specific need that I had. So he wrote about a paragraph just about my video, and he talked about how much he loved my content, things he had learned from my content, how inspiring this video was. And then it wasn't until the final sentence that he mentioned he could edit videos for me. So it was much more personalized than most generic outreach, but it still probably was something he was doing at scale. Um, so that's more of like what we're going to talk about. Just know a lot of it will come down to timing. So you want to do personalized outreach, but you still want to find a way to be able to do it at scale the way like these people do. Probably not as much, but still at scale. Because if you like I coached this one student in the summer who he like sent one cold message out and he got a response on the first message, which normally be like, that's amazing, like awesome. This guy's like, he's got a win straight off the bat. This student's gonna get a lot of results. It was the worst thing that could have happened because he immediately stopped doing outreach. He was like, no, I just want to focus on this one conversation, this one client. I'm gonna close him. And for 3 weeks, he was just going back and forth in the DMs, getting ignored for 7 days. Then the guy would respond back. He'd send him a loom. He'd like follow up a couple times. Then the guy would get back with him. They got on a call, and the guy wasn't sure. Like 3 weeks that he could have been reaching out to other people, building up his confidence, knowing he's got leads in the funnel, so he's not desperate on the sales call. But instead, he was like, no, I just want to focus all of my attention on one person. Trust me, a DM conversation does not take much attention. It probably takes 5 minutes out of your day. So there's no reason you can't be having like multiple of those. But yeah, so personalized outreach for better engagement. That is like the message here. And like one thing I did when I was going for the Skool games, this will be a little bit of teaching about like warm outreach. So reaching out to people you already know, but maybe you don't know that well. So something I did was I recorded Loom videos for over 100 people that I had met either in person or on calls or through people that like there was a lot of trust built on the Skool platform. So it was August, I was going for the games and I had a copywriting offer. So it was done for you copywriting, insanely cheap. I was charging $9.99 for what was normally a $7,000 package. I still look back and I'm like, oof, that was rough. I would never do that again. But it was the launch pad to then be able to charge what I charge now. But anyways, I went through every single person I knew that I'd met through the Skool games, that I'd met through like events that I had chatted with, or that I had even like already been working with outside of school. And I sent them a customized loom, like usually 2-3 minute loom, because I wanted to be respectful of their time. I was not sending them 10-minute looms because that is disrespectful to a really busy entrepreneur to be like sending them these long looms and then it's like, I don't know, like it depends who you're reaching out to. Unless you're directly solving a problem on that loom, I would keep your looms to probably under 5 minutes, but the best is like 2 to 3. And there's no reason you can't communicate in 2 to 3 minutes what you need to, unless you're like demoing a product or something. But I was sending them 2 to 3 minute looms. I would start off by addressing the fact that there was absolutely no reason they should be getting a message from me. Be like, you're probably like, what the heck is Patrice sending me a loom for? And like I would just address that with like some humor. And I started off the loom by like going through where I was on the Skool leaderboard. So I was very honest because immediately they're like, why is she sending me a loom? I'd never pitched any of these people before. So it's not like I had any like, it's not like they
You
thought they
sent
were
the
getting
loom on the Skool DMs?
on Skool DMs and on Instagram. And I
Oh yeah.
think a couple
Did you have
through.
previous conversations with them, or was that the first interaction?
Yeah, I'm gonna get into that. So I had relationships with all of these people. So I think there was maybe one or two out of the 100 that I didn't have a previous conversation on Skool, but there was some touch point where there was like we were on a call together, we had met in person, there was some kind of conversation, or even just like there was a few people that like Goose or like a couple influential people in Skool were like, you should really reach out to this person. I think they would benefit. And so then those people I would usually send a message first and then send a loom. Because you don't want to just like assume people have like all the time in the world to be considering your offer. I wanted to be super respectful of that. And so I would send the loom. Step one was like address the fact that this is completely uncalled for. And then I would go into why I was sending it to them. So I showed where I was on the leaderboard, my crazy Hail Mary pitch. And that's just like being transparent, being honest. So if you're not going for the Skool games, there's a lot of different ways you can be honest about what you are going for. You can be like, this is a first month that I'm going to be able to make as much money in my job, like through school. And so I'm going all in to make that happen so that I can be able to provide for my family without having to clock into a 9 to 5. Like that have been my offer before. Like this time last year, I was just trying to get out of a job. Or your offer could be like, I'm really trying to take care of XYZ, or like I really want to help my parents, or like transparently, like I am sending you this loom because I have an offer I really think you would benefit from. And selfishly, I really, really am trying to grow right now in Skool. I've got a bit of momentum here, and I think there's a lot of potential right now. And I just wanted to show you this. Totally fine if it's not for you, but I noticed this in your community and I think it would help. So you're like, then you're going to go into like the personalized outreach. So you want to like really be finding a specific problem that they have. So I like to start off with something that is like genuine to the community. Like, I really love the way you do XYZ, or I noticed like in your content you do this. I thought that was super cool. Started implementing it in my content as well, or whatever. Like you have to like find some good in their community before you're like, this is a problem you have, let's fix it. So give them a genuine compliment, and then inquire about something. You could ask about like, how did you come up with that system, or what made you start that? Super cool. And then you're gonna have to follow up. Most people, you're gonna have to follow up like 3 or 4 times. So if you send out 100 looms and only get 10 responses, that's actually like really, really good. You still have to go and follow up with 90 people at least 5 times. And then your response rate is gonna go like through the roof. Because if you think about it, most of these people that you're reaching out to, if they're making 20, 30K on Skool or on something else with their info product business, they're really busy, and they're probably on coaching calls, and they're probably doing sales calls themselves, and they're probably trying to figure out how to train their team, and how to deal with XYZ fire that they've got to put out, and make content and edit it, and all of these things. Because typically the people like that we're contacting, they are still in that like really painful growth phase of their business. So they're very busy. And so if you don't follow up with them, chances are they're just never going to see your message. Or what's worse is they might just think you're sending this message out to everyone, because you are. You're sending it out to 100 people. So you want to personalize it at the beginning, but then you want to follow up and continue to personalize the follow up at least 5 times. There's a saying that Ted has, Ted Carr, that like he always says like, I follow up until they either buy from me or they tell me to F off. And until I've gotten one of those, I'm going to continue to follow up. And he also says that he feels disrespected by people that outreach to him and don't follow up. So I have a great story about this. I think this was 2 months ago on Skool. I got a DM from someone named Frank Kern. Do you guys know who Frank Kern is? Yeah, he's one of the best copywriters, marketers in general, and like a webinar king. Alex Ramosi considers him the best copywriter in the world. And so I started my copywriting journey studying Frank Kern. He was the foundation of everything I wrote. I just tried to like write like Frank, because Ted told me Frank was good, and so I just like went on to swipe.co and found all of Frank's stuff. And so I got a DM from Frank, and I was like, the heck? And it was like a long DM. Like somebody tagged me in one of his posts and like told him that I had won the Skool games with a copywriting offer. And he took the time to go and like DM me and ask me to come on his podcast. And I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God, like this is everything I wanted. And Frank being Frank, super busy guy, I followed up with him like within minutes and didn't get any response. Silence. I followed up again. No response. Like, and I was like, oh my gosh, Frank, like really appreciate it. Like I can make whatever time is best for you work. And I can travel to you, or can do it virtual, whatever works for you. Really love your content. Was introduced to it by Ted Carr, and like it's been the foundation for all my copywriting. And he didn't respond. Follow up again. Like, hey, Frank, I know you're super busy, just bumping this up. Didn't respond. Followed up again, third time now. No response. Then I went and I looked him up on Skool, and I found one of his communities. It was a $400 community with nothing on the about page besides Frank Kern in the description. And I bought it because I was like, how else am I going to get his attention? And he shoots me a DM. He's like, you weren't supposed to buy that. That's like a freebie that I give away to people that are a part of a different program. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he refunded me. And then I follow up again. I was like, I didn't mind. Like I would have bought it. Like love what you're doing in here. And brought up the podcast again. No response. And so it was like silence for a while. And last night I was like, wow, I haven't followed up with Frank in a couple weeks. It's time to follow up again. And so I sent him another follow up message. And I was like, and I complimented like the calls that I'd like been on in his community and how valuable they'd been. And I was like, I know you're super busy, but you reached out a few months ago. So just wanted to bump this up and see if you still want to do that podcast. Not, no worries. And he sent me like this whole follow up last night at like 2 a.m. He was like, hey, sorry, I've been on vacation with my family in the mountains. Just saw your post in the free community because he's in my community. He's like, awesome job with that. And yeah, sorry, I've been so busy or whatever. So like that was 2 months of following up to get that response back from Frank to then like start setting up a podcast. So that's the testimony to follow up. I think what Ted Carr says that like he's insulted if people don't follow up is really true because like then it just feels like you're doing that to everyone. But even like a scenario like Frank where he reached out to me with that he was the one that wanted to do a podcast, and that I mean he's just so busy. Like that's only to be expected. He probably gets hundreds of DMs on Skool, and most of them are
What's
probably
the
just
number
people.
of kind of like people that you would have like him? Like how many of those would you approach, right? Because you cannot do 1,000 of these like high, because like it really depends. Are you going volume, and kind of like low quality? So what you said, like the differentiation between the personalized or the generic, right? So it seems like you're hinting towards the personalized, and I'd be interested to know like what's your number of recommended dish? Because like generic, you say, yeah, I can do like 100 or 1,000 a day because I'm just copy pasting. But these need more attention. So like I'd be curious.
Depends what your goal is. If your goal is to make money tomorrow, go like number way. Do a
Yeah.
bunch of outreach. You will respond, I guarantee it. But if you want to build like a foundation, if you want people like Frank Kern reaching out to you on Skool, you have to build a brand. You have to build a network of people that are going and tagging you on people like Frank Kern's posts. You have to go and network with people in person, on live mastermind calls, in high ticket communities. You have to be willing to network with people with no ROI. Like you have to genuinely just go and like add value, ask questions, be curious. Cause like that, and it's not something that's easy to like systematize, which for us entrepreneurs, we want to plan it out. We want to be like, okay, if I put this many inputs, I'm gonna get this many outputs. But that's not how it works with networking. And I think Olga is like a great testament to this. Like she could talk about how she like sent me a message back in was it August, I think? August. Yeah. Yeah. And now she's like an integral part of the team. She's like my right hand woman and it would fall apart without her. So that's like how fast like you can become really valuable to somebody really fast. But when it comes to networking, you just want to focus on like the relationships. Like you really just want to focus
Yeah.
on like building relationships, and the only way you can build trust is by like adding value up front without a pitch on the back end. Like if you can think about how much higher leverage it is, you can become close friends with like Max Pearson, Sam Ovens, and Alex Hormozy. Like think about how much leverage that is on Skool. If all of them are your friend, but none of them are going to ever buy from you, but think about the leverage of just like Alex Hormozy thinking you're a good copywriter, Sam Ovens thinking you're a good operator or Skool community guy, and like Max respecting the heck out of you for, I don't know, the way you write your posts or something. Like, and if you're like friends with those people, they're inviting you onto calls, they're asking your input, that is going to carry so much more weight than if you get 3 responses back to a mass outreach like blast. Because long term, I would assume most people on this call, maybe I'm like making an assumption that's not true, but I would assume most people on this call are in business for the long game, not just to make 10K next month. Like that's what you have to decide. Do you want to build an empire or do you just want to make money next month? Because
So
it's
let's assume you want to build the empire. Like how many people would you approach at the same time? If like with this high quality engagement?
yeah. So I would not be doing it all through DMs, right?
Yeah.
I think the DM blast, like the way I did it on for the Skool games, I could feel that I was tapping into goodwill that I'd built for 6 months. I was tapping into a finite resource. There was only so much goodwill, and then it was going to be run out. And so I don't do that like on a regular basis. That's like a sprint. But prior to that, I spent 6 months going to events. I think I went to about like 4 or 5 events. Every single event, I would talk to at least 10 people and exchange email or Instagram, not with the intent to pitch them, just with the fact that like I
Like,
respected them and
were
wanted to
these
learn
events
from them.
specifically for Skool or more general?
Some of them, yeah, most of them
Okay.
were for Skool. I went to a mix, like Ted Carr was doing like high ticket coaching events. So
Mm.
it wasn't directly for Skool, but it was like tied into Skool. I'd say like 50% of the people at the event were on Skool. Then there was like some events directly related to Skool. Like Ted did a Skool meetup in California. That was cool. And then there was like events that were completely unrelated, that were just like social media conferences. Those are cool because you meet people that like expand your horizons. Because like I think in school we forget that there's so many other kinds of businesses, and like I was talking to people that were like deca millionaires in businesses I'd never even heard of. So like
Okay,
that
so
like broadens your
you
horizons.
collected
And
as
then I was
many as
on my
possible, right? Like during these events, talk as many people as possible, and then you kind of followed up with them, kind of like collecting all of these social gold, that you then cash in on the Skool games. And like, hey, like we've been interacting off and on for like the last 6 months. Um,
yeah,
here's what I can do for you. Is that like a rough summary?
yeah. Yep. Yeah. Usually what I would do is bring them onto a podcast because like I just wanted to like learn from them and share their story with my audience of like 100 people at the time. Um, and that was like the secret hack that I didn't know I had. But like bringing people onto a podcast, you spend an hour learning about their business,
Yeah, it's
you learn
insane.
about their personal life, their motivation, their drive, the issues they've had, where they want to be 10 years from now. And you do it from the perspective of just like someone who wants to learn. So they don't
Yeah.
feel like they're being pitched and they're not being pitched. And that is probably the most organic way to network. I wouldn't say use a
How
podcast to
many
get
people
clients.
did you have on the podcast in these 6 months?
I probably had like 40 people,
Oh, you
but
so
I've
you did
only
weekly
posted.
episodes, almost more than
Oh
that.
yeah, I was doing weekly at one point.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, that was like podcasting was all I was doing this time last year.
Oh,
But
okay.
I
And
didn't post.
copywriting on top of that, or was it just like, let me network with these people and then come up with the offer of copywriting? When did you have the offer? Like, at what point were you like,
Started,
okay, this is the offer for to win the Skool games?
that's a good question. I started copywriting. My first client was in March, but I didn't really start copywriting until May, like bringing on other clients. And then I think it was like June, July. June, I hit 10K and decided like, okay, copywriting will be cool for now. I'll do that to make some money. And then like July, I was like, okay, I want to go for the Skool games. Let's do it with a coaching offer. Halfway through the Skool games, I'd only made like 8K. And I talked to Max Pearson. We got on like an hour-long call, and he was like, you gotta pivot. Like if you like you could win with a coaching offer, but it's gonna be really freaking hard. Because I wasn't even on the top 20 leaderboard, and it was like the 19th of the month. And so I pivoted my offer that night to done for you services. I booked a flight for the next day to California. I went and hung out because I made all these connections. I was connected with Ed Carr, Goose. I was connected with like a lot of the leadership at HQ. And so I went there and I was just like, let me be around these people. There was no event, there was nothing. I just was like, I need to be comparing myself to people that are like way better than me. And I wasn't going to do that in a small town in New York. So I left and just like it was arguably a really dumb decision. Like, let's just go travel in the middle of a business competition. Doesn't really check out, but it was the best decision
But
I
I
could have
think it's
made because
brilliant.
then all of a sudden
Yeah.
it was yeah, I was connecting with people who were way more successful than me, and so my standards were higher for myself and my work ethic. And I worked 16 to 18 hour days. I think I was sleeping about 5 hours a night. My call schedule would go until 12 a.m. So like I was open for bookings till 12 a.m. Would reopen at 5 a.m. So it was insane. Um, and I was sending the looms out every single day. I was jumping on sales calls. I was like personally closing every single person to win the games. And I had no team, absolutely nothing. And I was doing all of like and I was starting service delivery during the games as well. So I wasn't just like selling these people. I was delivering immediately on the emails, on the posts that I promised them, on the graphics. So I was giving them graphics, I was giving them emails, I was giving them posts, and I was doing a complete like about page copy. something
I
that I
think that
now
was
charge
crucial
like between.
because like this way it was spreading, right? Because if you deliver exceptional services to one person, the only reason you, or like not the only reason, I bet it was playing into that, like number two, three, and four all heard on how good of a job you were doing for one. And then like from there, it's like
Yeah.
I think once you hack word of mouth and people are actually saying, yo, like real deal, then you kind of have like a card that you can go wherever you want, right?
Yeah, it's this is totally outside of outreach, but there's something to be said about the school games. There it's a dangerous game in which most people kind of like lose sight of their
Yep.
goal, and so they sell a lot and they don't deliver, and then they create a terrible reputation for themselves. But it's not even the reputation that kills them because once you've won the games, like you can use that, and you can build a reputation back. It's the most valuable thing. You don't want to lose it. I'm not like don't be nonchalant about like your delivery, but like there's people I've seen that haven't delivered in the school games that then like built that reputation back by creating a new offer. So you can do it. I would avoid having to do it, but more so it's like the lack of or like the self-respect that you're going to lose. Like if you sell all these people and you promise them an end result, you promise to make them extra money and then you don't deliver, you're just going to hate yourself. And you're
Oh
not
yeah,
going to
of
be able
course.
to belief that you need on a sales call to then go and speak with conviction next month when you need to continue selling because guess what, MRR does not guarantee you next month's revenue. So you need to actually deliver, and I was like delivering for I think it was like 35 done for you copywriting people. Olga, do you remember like what the exact number we were writing for? An insane amount of people.
30?
It was like 30
Um,
40 people,
yeah.
yeah. And then there was coaching students as well because I started off the games with a coaching offer. So
Yeah.
there's about 8 coaching. And
Did you have
then
a limit on like, hey,
yeah,
I can do that much and I cannot cross over that? Did you have something like that? What if you
absolutely
had
not.
gotten
No.
like 70?
I was just gonna figure
Oh,
I would have
okay.
figured it out. I would have
Yeah, like
hired people if I had to. I
you
was
have a lot
training
of
old at
money
the
with that
time. Like
then.
old
Yeah.
Yeah, Olga came on in she worked for free for a month. She came on in September, and yeah, that was crucial. But we were still kind of like building out a system. So that was chaos. I went from working like 18 hours a day to maybe like 16 hours a day during September. And I didn't leave my house for like a month straight. I remember calling my mom, like maybe a couple weeks into September, because I'd gone for a walk and I felt so guilty that I was leaving my computer for 20 minutes. Like 20 minutes to go for a walk outside. I hadn't like been outside. It was it was like so cool because like you tap into a version of yourself that you didn't know you had. But all that to say, like, do not get so caught up in selling that you lose sight of like what your promise is because that will affect selling in the future. Um,
Yeah.
so like back to outreach, yes, you like long run, like that delivery is going to affect the like referrals you get, which is like the actual like that's what you're chasing. You want to create
Yeah.
relationships where like when I called up like Goose, I talked to Ted and I got on a call with Max and they all sent me people that I should check, that I should like message or send a loom to or check in with. And that's crucial as well. So there were people that didn't even buy from me, but that like they all like sent me people because I built relationships. And so a lot of times when I pitch, I would be like, do you know anyone who needs this? Instead of like kind of the Alice Rosie approach, instead of being like directly like, do you need this? If it's someone I don't know as well, and like when I was brand new to copywriting, that's exactly what I did. I'll show you guys a message in a second. But like you wanna like make people feel like number one, you're being authentic, number two, they're not being sold to, and number three, there's a ton of value in what you offer. And so combining those things is kind of like a difficult recipe to conjure up. But if you can do that and you can maintain the relationships that you have with all those people, that's like higher leverage in the end to be able to like work with someone like Ted or work with someone like Max and just to even have the respect of someone like that is way more valuable than to make a quick sale. And I wrote a post about this in the school games. I think you guys probably saw it. I wrote it like 2 days ago, and I was talking about how the school games distracts a lot of people from like what their actual mission is, and it's a really dangerous game to play because people think that the school games is the end goal. And if the school games was your end goal, then you can use whatever the heck kind of outreach model you want to do. You can burn every bridge you have, you can burn every relationship you have, you can destroy your reputation, and you'll probably win, and you'll probably make like 300K. And unfortunately, the after effect of that is people don't respect you anymore, and people don't trust you anymore, and people churn, and people like don't want to buy from you anymore because you just burnt all of your goodwill. And then there's nothing else for you to do except like create a new product and start from zero. And that's a really rough position to be in. And we see a lot of that happen in the school games. And that's why Sam doesn't like the high ticket, like pump and dump kind of scenario, because that's the people that it attracts. That's the people it incentivizes. So you have to keep in mind what your infinite goal is, right? Like if your infinite goal is to stay in business, like Alex Hormozi talks about, then the school games is a finite goal that you can use to get you closer to what your mission is, your long-term vision. But if you let school games become your infinite goal, it ends in 30 days. And then you get what's called the school games depression. And had you made a bigger goal than the school games, you would never experience school games depression. But most people get so caught up in the school games, they're not thinking about the next month. They're just thinking about December. And so then you win in December or you lose in December, you're basically, either way, your life is over. You're like, what do I work towards now? But if you keep that goal in mind, like for me, I wanted to become the school copywriter long before I ever went for the games. So when I was going to win the games, I knew that the delivery was going to be just as intense as the sales process. And I was like fully prepared for that. So I would say like that is probably the most crucial thing that you can keep in mind when you're doing your outreach is like, what is your actual mission? Like, do you want to become the best at something? Do you want to impact a certain group of people? Do you want to, change the way certain systems in your country are built, or how people learn? Like my infinite goal, I was talking to Olga about this last night on the team call. My infinite goal is to change the education system. My goal is not to become like the world's best copywriter or build a massive marketing agency or any of those things. This is just like part of a finite game that contributes to an infinite game. Because there's never going to be a perfect education system, right? So it's like a game that I can always play. So you want to find a game that you can always play. And I digress a lot from the outreach, so
No,
I'll
no,
get back on.
I love that. Like as a follow-up, because I think the more concrete you are with your goal, the more you know what you ultimately want. Like, that's the reason why you reach out to people, right? I'm reaching out to you because eventually I want to change the education system, because winning the school games will get me there, because um I have this offer here. And then people are like, click, 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 click. This is a logical response, and it makes sense that you would reach out to me. In fact, it would be weird if you wouldn't. And this is,
Yeah,
I think, the thing that like works.
yeah. And being super honest about it. Like if you're a beginner, that's not a bad thing. You have to own that. Like if you aren't authentic, that is immediately felt. And if you are authentic, it builds trust. Even if like you're authentic about something that maybe doesn't make you sound like the world's best copywriter, the world's best like system builder or operator or whatever it is that you're doing. But like I remember one person when I first sent outreach to, and I'll show you guys the message that I sent. Um, I sent this same message out to about 40 people that had been on my podcast. And it was like slightly tweaked. Just the beginning part was tweaked, and then like the very end. But it was basically just like, hi, Zane, or whoever I was talking to. Hope you're doing well. Just wanted to thank you so much for coming on the podcast a couple months ago. I wasn't even prepared for how much I learned from that, and I had a lot of good feedback on it. If you want short form content, edited and everything, just let me know and I can share it via Google Drive. So here I'm just like adding value. Like I'm like, thank you so much for doing the podcast. If you want some free content, like I'm creating it for your podcast, like let me know if you want it. Also, shot in the dark, but do you know anyone that might need a copywriter? I just started copywriting a few months ago and have been getting really good results with my email open and click-through rates. I just finished ghostwriting a book for Ted Carr too. I'm new to it, but if you think of anyone who might be looking for some help with their emails, sales pages, or posts, I've written copy for all three of those. Which, by the way, when I sent this email, it was all practice copy that I had written for those three things. So I'd be happy to work for free for a sample email to see if it's a good fit. Might be a shot in the dark. I figured you have a pretty epic network. Thanks again for the podcast and all those nuggets I got to share with my audience. So
Can you
I
send this?
had gotten
This is really cool, by the
email
way.
open and click through rates. What's that?
Can you send this the copy? I really like it. It's very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll send it after. So basically I was like sending emails to my email list, and I was getting really good results. And so I was just basically quoting my own practice work. I had an email list of like maybe like 1,500 people or so that I pretty much just built through like previous jobs that I had had. So was not the ideal audience. But I figured out how to kind of like write to them and got really good email open rates. And then I had Ted Carr was my only client at the time. So I used what I had and I really framed it well. And then I remember somebody asked me like it was like something about how like I was brand new to it, like should we like how can we trust you if you haven't gotten results on like XYZ? And I was like, yeah, it's true. Like I am brand new to copywriting. I've only been doing it for a couple months. Granted, like I've gotten some great results, but I'm fully aware that I'm a new. But there's not anybody else that you could possibly even hire that's going to be as fired up and as hungry to get results for you. Because I have something to prove. Like I am new to it and I acknowledge that. And that's why you should hire me. Because I have something that I have to prove to you. I have like a lot more on the line because I am new and you don't trust me and you shouldn't. And that's why I'm going to prove to you that I can get you good results. And that was all they needed. Like they were asking for a portfolio and all this stuff. And I was just like, look, like I don't have that because I'm brand new. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I think we can make this work. And we got on a call and that became like a $6,000 proposal. So that's something you can leverage. Like the fact that you're new to something, and by the way, if you're like in the first 5 years of anything, you're new to it. Like I'm still new to copywriting, and so you can leverage that you have something to prove that like an agency is not gonna have to prove to you. An agency is already established; they treat you like a number. So yeah, you have like a reputation that you can look at, but you're not gonna have personalized support.
Yeah, you always have an
So
advantage,
definitely like
right? Like when you're the small guy, then your advantage is personalized. I'll get it done for you, like because everything is on the line. And big guy is um, like we have the proof, we know it works. Don't worry about it. So you just can leverage whatever advantage you have because you always have one.
absolutely. Yeah. So I'm gonna go through and kind of like break down the science behind these messages and like the difference between like mass outreach and very personalized networking. And then why don't we like open it back up for questions at the end? But basically like what I said before, you're treating every conversation or every piece of outreach as a conversation, establishing that rapport with somebody. Start by actually like looking into their business. The amount of research that I did into Ted Carr's business when I first got him like as a client. I think I was talking to somebody the other day because I would just play Ted Carr content every second, every waking hour of the day. And so I probably consumed between like 100 and 200 hours of Ted Carr's content in 30 days. And then I also, in that same 30 days, wrote him 200 pages. So I wrote him a full FAQ and a book. And that's like going above and beyond, right? Like if somebody gives you a shot, you want to go above and beyond. And then like for Max Pearson, like before Max Pearson ever like hired me to do any type of work that was paid, I was researching and reading every single Instagram caption he had written, every single piece of YouTube content, even the YouTube content that was before Skool, because he used to do like agency stuff. I watched all of that just to learn how he talked, just to learn like how like he put together sentences, the verbiage he used, like the way he addressed his audience, like all of those things. Because when I wrote for him, I wanted it to sound like him. So like you want to go and like put the work in on the front end for a client if you really want to have them as a client, because you can pretty much get anyone as a client. Like I was at a dinner with Matthew Thompson and we were at a table and he asked what would like who would be your dream client? And this was back in June. And I was like, oh my gosh, like Max Pearson would be the coolest client. Cause then I would basically just be writing for Skool. And I went like and ranted for like 20 minutes. And I didn't realize one of the people at that table was Dan, Max like coach, Max success coach that does like all of the client success work. And so Dan was like, okay, we're gonna introduce you to Max. And like Max was sitting over at like the other side of the room. I was like, I didn't talk to Max. I was like way too like nervous. And Dan introduced me to Max, and that was the start of it. We wound up like filming a podcast that same weekend. He interviewed me, and I interviewed him, and that's like how crazy things, like how thin threads can connect you. And the only reason I was at that dinner was because I gotten connected to Goose. So Goose, I think, found out that I had written a book for TED, and then he wanted a book. So I was like, okay, I'll write you a book. I came to California. I was like, let's do like some in-person interviews. Let's put this together. I really just wanted to like be in person in California because I knew it would like lead to success. But I was like, let's do some interviews for the book. And so that kind of like got me into HQ, got me around like the team. I was writing a book for Goose. And then Goose was like, hey, we need somebody to help set up for the school games. Do you want to come? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you're gonna have to like Uber back after you set up, but like you can just like come in, you'll get to see acquisition headquarters set up really early in the morning and then like head out. I was like, perfect. Like say less, I'm there. And all I was flying to Las Vegas for was to literally set up for the school games. And so I went there, I set up, and then they didn't make me Uber back. They're like, just be a wallflower. You can listen into Alex and the mastermind and everything. And that's how I got into the first one. It's like I just was in the right place at the right time, connected to the right people. And so it started with an actual deal, like an actual client, because I was actually writing a book for him. And we were working on like a couple things in his community as well. And so like it started with value, and then it led to like a bunch of other connections. And as you can imagine, when you're in rooms like that, the quality of people you're connecting with is a lot higher. And I still wasn't like all in on the copywriting, but I had hit my first 10K month. So anytime someone asked me what I did, it was like, well, I'm a copywriter, because like I'm not going to say anything else and make myself look like a broke, unemployed college dropout. So the only identity I had was copywriting. But like basically this roadmap is just like the way you treat outreach as conversations is you just genuinely have conversations, and you kind of like put outreach out of your mind. And when you like genuinely are asking people questions about their business, you're asking about their goals, like you're gonna get such a higher response rate. Like the message with Frank was super natural. It wasn't just like it wasn't, like, hey Frank, following up again. Like I put effort into it, and I also was like totally okay if he didn't respond. I wasn't desperate for it, like that desperation, people can feel that. Because you write differently. So you want to just know that like there's an infinite amount of opportunities out there, amount of deals that you can make, amount of clients you could have. There's so many people. And so if, like we said, the infinite goal, right? Like if you have an infinite goal beyond just this next client, beyond just like this next community you want to work with, or this next, copywriting client you want to do, like if you have a goal beyond that, then on that sales call, you don't care if it goes well or if it doesn't go well. All you care about is like what you can learn. And so because of that, when I was networking or when I was on a sales call or when I was sending outreach, I really just didn't care what happened, because copywriting wasn't my infinite goal. Copywriting was just a small part of a much bigger mission. And so if you look at like what you're doing right now, it's probably a very small part of what your end goal 20, 40, 50 years from now is. That gives you so much leverage, because all of a sudden you're the one who's like deciding if you want to work with that client, because it's just like a small piece in like a very big puzzle. And I think that's why it was easy for me to sign clients at the start. I had that leverage of like copywriting was never my goal. I fell into copywriting because Ted Carr asked me to write a book for him. I wasn't even good at it. I was really bad actually. And I just wrote so much in like such a short span of time that I started getting my email open rates up. I started like really learning how to write good hooks. I started just signing clients, and I was writing like insane amounts of copy every day, to the point that cause when I first signed clients, I wasn't good. But I wouldn't submit bad copy to them. Like I was aware that I wasn't good. I was getting feedback on it, and I was just rewriting until it was good enough that I could send it to the client. So I was never sending bad copy out, but
How did you test
I mean,
them?
I'm in. What's that?
You got feedback from whom? Because like you had
I would
clients, but you weren't sending that out. So how did you get feedback?
I would get feedback from like Benny and Ted's team, or Ted Carr himself. Like I was paying for their mentorship. So I made sure that I was like always in proximity to those people. So I invested like my savings into Ted Carr's program. I invested like, I don't know how much it was by the time June came around, because I invested 2K in his initial program. Then I joined his family, which is $250 a week, and I was just like on every call asking for feedback, going to every event. And so a lot of the feedback was coming from that. But yeah, when you're in groups like that, that's a shortcut. Like if you're in like a mastermind like Ted Carr's, or like even like this, like you're around other people that are also here to invest into their personal business, into their skill set, into their network. And so the networking in a paid community is always going to be like way more accelerated than if you're just like going into free communities, because everyone goes into free communities. So that applies outside of school as well. Like you want to go to like business conferences where the multimillionaires are going, because the multimillionaires can learn from something there. And if you're in an environment like that, you're not necessarily at the conference to learn from whatever's being taught on stage. You're there to learn from the people. So when that's your perspective, the conversations become really, really natural. And it's really hard to do because, like I said at the beginning, we like to systematize things. We want to know how many outputs we're going to get for however many inputs we put in. And like, unfortunately, that is entrepreneurship. Like you are never going to know for sure if you're going to get a payoff from the work you're doing. And that is why most people don't make it, because they cannot handle that uncertainty. In a job, you work 8 hours, you get paid whatever you get paid per hour. It's guaranteed every week. You work a certain amount of hours, you get paid a certain amount. If you work at overtime, you get paid a certain amount more. If you work less, you get paid a certain amount less. But in entrepreneurship, you might work for 3 months and you might lose money. You might lose money on coaching programs. You might lose money traveling. Like I was losing money. I counted the days until I was going to have to move back in with my parents. Like that, I had a number. I knew how much time I had left. But still, when I would jump on a sales call, I wasn't worried about it because I knew that like copywriting wasn't the end goal. I knew that I just wanted to keep getting closer and closer to the people that had the life that I wanted. So yeah, I mean, we've digressed a lot from this roadmap, but when you create those connections, the call experience becomes super casual. On a sales call, you don't have to pitch. When you know the client's business and they know that like you're a hard worker because they've connected with you in the past, the call is just a conversation. You just figure out what they need and you tell them how much it's going to cost. The close rate, it's like basically 100% for me now. And then like obviously like that leads to your overall success. It's going to lead to you learning way more, improving your skill set, and then at the end of the day, making more money. So like I have never done cold outreach. I've made over $150,000 on Skool, or through Skool. I don't process everything on Skool, but yeah, it's so much easier too if you walk into a room to network with people and you don't have an agenda. You don't have like an end result that you need to get besides just like learning from them. I think this is just another graphic I made of like basically the same thing. Yeah. It's like basically you want to figure out a way that like you enjoy adding value, something that's strategic for them. This is kind of like strategic connections, genuine relationships, and when those intersect, then you find like the best kind of clients. So you want to be genuine with the kind of relationships you form, and not all of them are going to lead to sales. Like a vast majority of them are not. You also want to make sure you're strategic with the people that you form those genuine relationships with, because when those intersect and you have people in business that are your best friends, either they're going to become clients or they're going to send you clients. And you also are going to have a way better circle of people that increase like the standard you hold yourself to. So that's probably the highest leverage thing you can do. It's just like connect yourself with people that are really, really smart. Did we go over this? Yeah, we went over the genuine compliment. Yeah, it's really like it's so easy when you put things in perspective and you get crystal clear on what your end goal is. Like you're able to just like genuinely connect with people that you enjoy talking to. And like after the Skool games, like I filtered through the people that I wanted to work with long term. And all the people that helped me in the Skool games, like they were awesome people. But like I had to decide like where do I want my brand to go now? Like what kind of people do I want to work with? I decided I didn't want to do copywriting for brand new beginner communities because the results I can get for a beginner are a lot less like guaranteed because their offer is like the primary thing they have to fix. So when it comes to working with beginners, I only focus on the offer. When it comes to copywriting and marketing, I only work with people that are making at least $30,000 a month in their community, but now my clients are all doing like over 100K. So that's something that like you want to be super crystal clear on. Is like, who do I want to work with? And be strategic and think about the fact that like everybody you know knows like a whole spider web of people. So you could connect with somebody that's like a total beginner, but maybe their mentor or their brother or their friend is like really big on the platform. So don't like when I was going to networking events, like I had no like I didn't look down on anybody because I was first of all a total beginner. So I just assumed everyone in the room was smarter than me, which like when you take that humble approach, it does wonders. And I underplayed everything I had done. I didn't talk about myself for the entire conversation when I would connect with people. I would just talk about their business. And that law of reciprocity is that like then they ask about you. And then when you talk about yourself, it's way more genuine because you're just they asked you. So then typically they ask for the sale and you don't have to pitch. That's like the benefit of that. But yeah, that's like a life hack I didn't even know I was doing when I was doing it. So if you guys can like implement that, it's gonna make your outreach so much easier because you're just gonna have a warm network of people that actually love talking to you and want to connect with you and know that you bring value to the table because they know that you already know their business. So like they don't have to teach you about their offer because you already spent time like asking them about it. You already like spent time learning about it or adding value to them in some way. And that's the shortcut. That's the way that you connect with people that are way higher level. That's because like that's just like it's unparalleled. People aren't doing that. People are just spamming these guys. Um, but yeah, do we have any questions in the last 7 minutes?
Something that I would like to add is when you were talking about outreach and you building goodwill, because I've been to some of your calls in the Skool Masterclass community and AIpreneurs, and all you do is add value to people. You never talk about yourself. So you ask them, what's your offer? Can you give me your offer in one sentence? Okay, let's fix that. And then you help them do that. So, Lucas, you were asking about this earlier. How do you reach out to those people? Sometimes you don't even have to because you already helped them in the past and you already gave them something that they were able to use and they got results from it and you help them for free. So, and I've done what Patrice teaches at a different level, of course, but it's worked for me as well. When I signed my first client, I was just providing value on the calls. I wasn't thinking about signing anybody. And then we met on a sales call, and I was still just providing value. He was the one who asked, how much does it cost to work with you? I just said the price and shut up, like Patrice told me. And he said, okay, that makes sense. And then I signed a $2,700 client. So yeah, like adding value first is the most important part of anything. Before you think about numbers, how many people do I reach out to? How do I sell them on what my offer is? Just add value and people will come to you.
Yeah,
No, I
100%.
like that.
Like that you did the exact same thing that like I was doing for Ted, Olga. Like for Ted, for Max, for Atina, I don't get paid to do any of those calls. I do those calls, the copywriting calls in Max's community. I was doing offer calls for Ted and offer calls for Atina, and like the goal is just to add value. Like genuinely, I just hate pitching. I don't like it. I don't like sales, and I don't really like selling in that traditional sense. So I just don't do it. Like I really hate this, so I'm just not gonna do it. And that's been such a great thing. Like most times I'd be like, yeah, if you don't like doing something, you should probably just figure out how to do it. Which you could argue that I have. Like I figured out how to sell without selling. But like I think honestly, like there's no need to pitch if you've proved your value up front. Like even those emails that I was sending out, that outreach, which by the way, I'll like post that or something, Lucas, so you can grab that. But even those emails, like notice how I didn't even pitch that person. I said, do you know of anyone who might need a copywriter? I would be willing to work for free. Like I did not even pitch the people in the email. So that's like a life hack. Like if you just genuinely add value, focus on the person, like and you're honest about where you're at, like your outreach is going to be 10 times easier. And it's so much more fun too. Like if you get on a call and you know you don't have to pitch them, like what's the worst part about the sales call? Like we're all just dreading the part where we have to actually tell them the price and pitch them because that's where you get rejected, right? If you never do that, then you never get rejected. Like you just let them come to you. And that's like that's not something that's achievable to everyone because like I said, I literally started copywriting about 6 months ago. Like a little more than 6 months ago. I wasn't like signing clients for more than like 2 or 3K until recently. Like I signed my first 10K client in October. That was the biggest client I'd ever signed. And now I've done that 3 times, and it's like, okay, the next number is it's gonna be like 15K, and you just like you can scale so much faster. So whatever limitations you put on yourself as far as like, oh, like I've got to do a sales call this way, or I've got to do this much outreach, like throw it out the window because like the only reason like I took the strategy is because I didn't listen to any of that stuff. I didn't even know what copywriting was. So I wasn't watching copywriting videos and learning how to do outreach for copywriting because I didn't know you could probably go through my Google search history, and in May, I guarantee you there's a search, what is copywriting? Probably at the beginning of the month. And the next month I made 10K with copywriting. So like, that's how fast it happens. Like, and it's because like everyone else is following that strategy, those YouTube videos, like what everyone else is doing. And if you just do something different and you just focus on actually building relationships and adding value, because your goal is bigger than just copywriting, you're going to like speed run through that process. And then people are gonna be like you guys know Tyson 40 on YouTube? He's a copywriter. Oh, you know, he DM'd me on Skool like 2 days ago, and he was like, "Hey, I saw you got like 10K client. Like, how's that going?" And which is so weird. I don't even know how he saw that. Maybe I posted about it at some point in his group, but I've only logged into his group like once or twice. And I was like, oh yeah, it's been good. I've signed a couple more since then, and like that's kind of become like the new price range or whatever. And he asked if I was like how I was doing outreach. He was like, are you still like outreaching to find new clients? And I was like, no, like I didn't outreach to find any of these clients. Like it's so funny. Even like that. I mean, that's his whole strategy. Like that's everything he teaches his audience is like outreach, 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 and it works. Like it's great, but like at the end of the day, that's great if you want to just be a copywriter. But I'm assuming most people on this call have aspirations bigger than just like a service-based business, like a freelancing business. You probably want to own something bigger than that. You probably want to build something bigger than that. Your impact should probably be greater than just increasing somebody's email open rates. And so if you look at copywriting as just like a stepping stone to what the next thing really is, that takes the pressure off you in the outreach, the sales call, all of it. And then you can just go and you can connect. And it's like what you were saying, Lucas, like quantity is in your favor. The more people you can establish high quality, high trust relationships with, the better. That's why I was like working those crazy hours. That's why I was flying across the country, flew to Vancouver just for like a 1 day event. I flew to California. I flew to Vegas. I flew like to multiple events. I spent all of my savings just like on flights and on hotels and going to events, and some of them turned into nothing. Like some of them turned into zero connections. But there was something learned at all of them. And because the event itself was not the end goal, I didn't care how that went. I knew it was just part of that infinite goal to play the game.
Do you have a ratio for those though? Because you say you send a lot of things that like for people that you signed versus people that you just generally outreach. I think if you check on how many looms you send, I always like found the amount of looms kind of like they kind of count as like one outreach. So you know that there are 35 clients, and if you check the looms,
Yeah.
then you probably can like calculate a ratio between that. That'd be really interesting to know.
Yeah. So figure like out of the 35 clients, at least probably 10 of them, I would say, were people that like I knew really, really well that just joined. I did send looms to just about everyone. I sent a loom to Ted. I sent a loom to all of my friends that like asked to join. So if you look at 100 looms and you look at 35 clients, it's a 35% close rate on a loom. So loom, then response rate was whatever, and then booking a sales call. But all said and done, at the end of the day, it was like 35%. But that's because I already knew these people. Like normally, if you're doing cold outreach, you're not getting a 35% response rate, let alone a 35% close rate. So
wait, does that mean you only send 100 looms?
What?
Does that mean you only send out 100 looms? Because like you said, 35 clients, that means like 35% rate means you send 100 looms in total.
Yeah. It was probably right about 100. It could have even been like a little bit less, but it was probably between like 95 and 100. And that was all just during the last like 2 weeks of the games after Max told me to change my offer. So that was a lot of looms in a very short amount of time. It was all I was doing. I was sending people looms at like 12 a.m. And then I was following up with them. Like if they didn't respond, I was going and I was messaging them. So it was insane. But because I had built those relationships, the response rate was so much better. And I wish we could stay on this longer, but I have my one and only coaching student that I still coach, who I'm supposed to be getting on a call with right now. So I have to run, but if you guys have any other questions, just like I'm going to post this recording, drop them in the comments, and we'll create another call about it. And really glad that you guys were all here. And just let me know, like if you guys have outreach you're sending, send me a screenshot or like send me the loom first, and I'm happy to take a look at it. Because yeah, there's just like certain little tweaks, like certain psychological pain points you want to hit on in a good loom. So yeah, awesome. All right, I'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.